Commissioner Chair Eisen.
Here.
Vice Chair Stamper. Commissioner Eisen.
Here.
Commissioner Black.
Here.
And Commissioner Haro.
Here.
All right, you have quorum.
Very good.
Chair Eisen, can I do something really quick before we move into the agenda?
Okay.
So the published agenda is slightly different than the agenda that the commissioners received earlier this week. So I just wanted to point that out. The content's the same, it's just a little bit different order to accommodate the fact that we have this important hearing on Magnolia Park. And so after we do the approval of minutes, any announcements and correspondence, public comment, the very first item will be Magnolia Park. When that's complete, then we'll go to staff informational reports, which will include the goals and priorities review at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, what was that? I'm sorry. I started looking at the, I was confused about the minutes that I'm allowed to do.
After public comment, we'll go right into the Magnolia Park item.
Oh, okay. Excellent. All right. All right. So we're looking at approving the minutes from the September 29th meeting when we had the joint meeting with BPAC. And then also October 27th, the last time we met, that set of minutes for that particular meeting. So can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Minutes, the September 29th joint meeting, BPAC meeting, and the October 27th regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting minutes are passed. Announcements and correspondence.
The only announcement I have is just reminding folks that the Nights of Lights events continue. Hopefully you made it out last week to the parade, which was an amazing event. And we're grateful to Crystal Geet, our chamber executive, who's joining us tonight in the audience. What an incredible job she did organizing that great event. And the week before was a really cool tree lighting. Hopefully you've been to MacDutra, where we've done some work, including some additional lights, but we also created a podium or a pedestal over the fountain for the winter time. It has the tree on top of it. And I don't know if it's still there, but the menorah was up throughout Hanukkah as well. So it's just a really beautiful exhibit right in the center of town. This Friday is the holiday marketplace. And I'm sure if we would like on public comment, Crystal may want to add any more information on that.
Excellent. Yes, it was all wonderful. And I did see the changes at MacDutra, and that looked really good. All right, let's go on to public comments. Do we have anybody who is interested in making any public comments about non-agenda items, things that are not on the agenda tonight?
Okay, we have Kristlyn with her hand up, so.
Okay, great.
Matthew, I think you're gonna have to allow her to speak. I don't have the.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you, Matthew, for the great topic about Nights of Lights. I wanted to send a big thank you to the city for making that pedestal. It's freaking awesome. And I can't wait till we get to use it more for more things. And we'll kind of talk about, as Matthew alluded to a little bit later. But I just want to thank the city for everything that they do to help make that event happen. I know Matthew likes to give me a lot of the credit, but it's definitely a 50-50 deal on the chamber and the city making that happen. And I think so far all the feedback has been super positive about the both the tree lighting and the parade. And we've already got ideas to really bring them to the next level next year. So I just, again, want to thank everybody for making all that happen. It was really cool.
Great. Thank you, Crystalline. So if that's it for public comments, then let's move on to the staff informational reports, and first with city council updates.
Actually, Paulette,
Yeah.
Or this is when you wanted
This
to
is
go
when
right
we'll
to
go into the
Magnolia?
Magnolia Park.
All right,
Yes, sorry about that.
let's move right then to Magnolia and get into this very important topic.
Thank you, Chair Eisen, and members of the Parks and Rec Commission. I'm Scott Phillips, Associate Planner here at the city, and I'm also the project manager for the exciting improvements in Magnolia Park. So I'll give a quick presentation to kind of go over the existing conditions of the park and what's taken place thus far. And then I'll hand it over to our landscape architect to go into the details on the preliminary concept work that's taken place, and then we'll open it up for questions and thoughts from the commission and members of the community on Magnolia Park. So let's go ahead and screen share the presentation. And then if you could allow me to screen share, I'll show just a couple quick slides.
You tried to, and it said you could not?
Yeah, so it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, this is a different format, so just give me one moment, please.
Okay.
That is, I don't know how to do it in this format. One moment, let me, while I'm looking at this, Scott, why don't you go ahead and email it to me, because if I need to, I will share it for you.
Okay.
This is different than a normal Zoom meeting, so I'm not familiar with how to. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Never mind. Okay, you can now share your screen.
All right, let's see here. Let's see, hold on. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so this slide shows the site and surrounding area. And Magnolia Park is a city-owned, undeveloped property between Magnolia Street and Seymour Street, just west of Highway 1. And the site includes roughly 150 eucalyptus trees and a small asphalt parking lot that's accessible from Seymour Street. The park, including the undeveloped right-of-way, is right around 78,000 square feet, or just under 2 acres. The frontage improvements include sidewalk, a street lamp, fire hydrant, and then driveway apron that allows access to the parking lot. Now, as the commission knows, the Magnolia Park was evaluated during the comprehensive parks master plan for the whole city. And this slide shows sort of the notes the vision that was identified for Magnolia Park, that a new low impact neighborhood park celebrating nature, as well as the recommended improvements that were included in the park's master plan. Now, this by all means isn't an end all be all. This is part of the recommendations was for a specific master plan for Magnolia Park, and that's really what we're doing here. Is we're identifying the future improvements for Magnolia Park. Now, the Parks Master Plan was finalized in 2018 and then adopted in 2019. Now, the first step when we started this process was that we engaged in a qualified biologist to help us out with evaluating the site and surrounding area as far as biological resources. And we also wanted feedback from the biologist on how to set up the improvements to be compatible with any biological resources on the site. And so that's it's really a foundational thing for moving forward with improvements in design of the park. The second step was that we hired a arborist to provide us feedback on the trees and any changes, any recommended improvements to the trees that could take place during this the park improvement process. Now, just to give you an idea on, this is sort of a timeline of what's taken place thus far in this process, as well as some key milestones moving forward. It all really started back in October when we were preparing for the community outreach meeting on site, which took place at the end of October. We then did a little update to the Parks and Rec Commission right around Halloween, and then also to our city council in the beginning of November in preparation for tonight's feedback meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission. Eventually, after this meeting, we'll go into refining, getting more details on what improvements would take place, and eventually presenting that to our city council for feedback. Now, we did prepare a community survey, and which actually ended yesterday, and it ran for approximately 2 months, and we received 99 responses, which we're very happy with. That's more than we expected, and certainly helps with getting some significant data on what improvements should go into Magnolia Park. Overall, as enthusiastic support for improvements, and the responses will certainly inform the updated design. Now, just a couple of, just to summarize the input that we received on the survey. The key one was the bicycle trails and pump track. That was shown as one of the most interest, as well as a picnic area and gathering space, community garden. And then a fourth runner-up was support for a new restroom on site.
Oh.
Now, a few concerns, and this wasn't an overwhelming, we didn't notice any sort of emotional charge with this, but just more suggestions to take, to be mindful of, how trash will be managed at the park, as well as parking and, potential traffic, and a couple of thoughts on that. We will be adding, an area for, a trash enclosure or to manage the trash accordingly. The parking lot, all three concepts do include a slight expansion of the parking lot. And then as far as trees and habitat protection, that was one of the reasons why we engaged in the biologist at an early phase, was to really make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to as far as preserving and habitat and, implementing avoidance measures where appropriate. Now at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Conroy, our landscape architect. He's going to go into the concepts that were prepared, that were included with your packet, as well as some thoughts and ideas and questions that the commission may consider when providing us feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to try to share my screen. Looks like I'm able to do that. Before this is concept A. I know that the commissioners have already received this in your packet, and it's been on the city's website in a couple of different formats for some time. But before I get into the concepts, I just want to give the commission some background on how we approach the project. We were incredibly fortunate to have so much background data right off the bat. It's very rare that we have a fully developed Parks Master Plan that we can use as a template, which is a huge leg up in the process. There wasn't a need for a huge needs assessment or anything like that, which allowed us to hit the ground running pretty quickly. So the Parks Master Plan, the biological resources assessment that Scott went over, as well as the arborist assessment, and follow-up conversations with staff on recreational opportunities and community opportunities that have been identified both during and during this mid-COVID period too, where people are looking for outdoor recreational opportunities. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that our conversations with the board and members of the CFOG group haven't been really helpful. Their enthusiasm with partnering with the city on developing a community park has really put a lot of fire into this project, and they've been really helpful as we've worked with the city on developing these concepts. Because we had such a thorough project background to get going, there are a lot of consistent site elements that you'll see on each of these concepts. While significant improvements are proposed, a strong sensitivity to the existing site is maintained throughout. Each concept includes green infrastructure improvements, especially along the drainage channel on Magnolia Street to improve the health, stability, and sustainability, to help funnel rainwater or filter rainwater as it passes through the park. Each concept does anticipate some potentially significant amount of eucalyptus vegetation management. This can or will involve selective removals, canopy thinning, likely continuing the young tree eradication in there, as well as underplanting that canopy to plan for more gradual succession of the canopy. Also, water storage, rainwater catchment, and water storage for reuse. You'll see on all of these concepts, because while most of the natural areas are the areas outside of the community garden, we don't anticipate a significant investment in irrigation. A community garden will require a certain amount of water, and where we can recapture and reuse that water, that's to the park's benefit. A couple other things. Each concept includes public restrooms, picnic areas, potentially with barbecue grills, drinking fountains, pedestrian circulation pathways. These are all things that were identified as desired amenities in the Parks Master Plan. And so we've incorporated them maybe in different forms and in different locations, but all of them are incorporated within the park. Consistent on each of the concepts too are new public access ways over Magnolia Street. You can see a couple of them here. They're generally located in the same place. And the one in the top right corner, in the northeast corner of the park, this aligns with the sidewalk on 3rd Avenue coming down. It kind of gets cut off at the top of the street, but it allows for some pretty direct connection, ADA accessible connections from the residential areas into the park. As Scott said, we do show the parking lot expanded on all of the concepts. The overall limits and requirements of that parking lot are still to be worked out. It depends on the intensity of use in the park as far as how many sites we need to have, but we're anticipating some increase in parking stalls on the site. The community garden is, of course, incorporated on each concept. The graphic representation varies on each of the plans to illustrate different possibilities. And the final form of the garden and the style or the approach to garden management is something that's going to have to be worked out with city staff at this conceptual level of master planning. We're not really dialing down on the nitty gritty of, you know, where the tomatoes go or how tall these raised beds are. We're just looking at the overall site arrangement and location on the overall property. One thing that is important and is consistent on each of the concepts is that the community garden offer facilities for the disabled. And so you can see different ways of approaching this on the plans. And possibly most importantly, certainly if the community feedback is a guide, is that each of the concepts maintains, if not formalizes and expands upon the extensive network of bike paths and jumps and things already there on the site. And I do, one thing that did come up in the public, well, both our public event as well as in emails to staff and in the survey, there's also concern about night lighting. Nobody wants this area to be lit up at night. And through all of our discussions with staff, our understanding is staff has no interest in lighting this park at night, and that it will be a kind of a sunrise to sunset facility. With all that background, so this is concept A. We developed 3 different concepts to explore different alternatives and different arrangements and different design language for the park. So this first concept, concept A, is probably the most active concept, has maybe the most active uses, and it's also probably the most compartmentalized. So each of these different areas on the park have different distinct zones. So you can see on the top of the site, the existing pump track is largely maintained, maybe with some modest improvements, including earthen jumps, banked turns, but really with a little expansion beyond its current limits. And you can see on the top of the slide, there's some pictures of both the current situation as well as a similar pump track down in Santa Cruz. One new addition is a large sports court here on the northwestern end with adjacent picnic areas. And we were a little surprised at how strongly against this concept the majority of the public input was on this. We wanted to include it. We knew there was some folks in the community who were looking for opportunities for beach volleyball. There were a couple people who were looking for pickleball, but an overwhelming consensus of people said this is not the place for a formal sports court. It didn't seem to fit in their minds the natural character of the site, which is really that first bullet point in the parks master plan when we're looking at amenities for this park. As we go through the site, on the right side, the northeast corner, we're showing a potential fairy garden natural play area. You might recognize one of those pictures from the Parks Master Plan. This is an informal area, maybe with winding pathways and willow wattle huts or tunnels and rocks and tree trunks. Really a place for maybe smaller kids to have some kind of free play, creative play spaces within the park. There's pretty clear circulation throughout the park, both north and south. This access through from 3rd Street down Magnolia in towards the parking lot, and then there's a circulation pathway that connects the the drainage crossing in the northwest corner. Most of the south-facing portion of the site on this concept is dedicated to the community garden. It has a strong connection to Seymour Street with a public entrance off of the sidewalk, maybe a couple of seating areas outside of the garden to allow people to stop and rest, view across the street to the wave crest areas. Surrounding that might be opportunity for a native plant demonstration garden. And here on the right, between the parking lot and along this main pathway, is a public restroom, possibly public restroom and storage facility holding things for the park, maintenance supplies for the park, maintenance supplies for the community garden, kind of a multi-use structure with restroom facilities. The second concept, concept B, is probably a little bit more integrated overall. It kind of blends the spaces and has some potential for overlapping uses. The distinct exception to that is the pump track, where the pump track just kind of moved into that northwest corner of the park. And it possibly has a slightly different character than the current pump track does, with maybe elevated boardwalks and jumps. And it's pretty clear, both from our limitations as well as the community input, that the final design of this pump track is something that's really going to need to be a collaboration with the users, the local kids, biking professionals, to fit something in here that works for all the neighborhood folks that are using this spot. The north central portion of the park here, this is maybe perhaps more traditional park-like. There's a central pavilion here, perhaps with a stage and adjacent picnic areas. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the potential for a stage and pavilion a little bit later, because that's something that we really need Rec Commission input on this. But this is a space that could host, birthday parties. It could host community events. It's possible that there's an opportunity for education, environmental stewardship events here. But surrounding this, maybe we can incorporate some of those fairy garden, creative play spaces in the larger areas surrounding the pavilion. Again, maybe additional native plant demonstration garden spaces. There's a pretty strong compatibility between native plants and butterfly gardens and things like that. You'll note the restroom has moved a little bit closer to Magnolia than down towards Seymour Street, where it was on the previous concept. The community garden, it's probably more formal in character on this concept than on concept A. There's a strong axial relationship, north-south relationship between the garden here and the central pavilion gathering area. And that again, that allows those spaces to be seen as integrated when they want to be, but distinct when they need to be. You can see in the bottom right another illustration of what accessible, wheelchair accessible garden beds are, and here on the left, different characters that garden pavilion can take. Concept C tended to be the concept that folks gravitated to the most. I think we noticed that in the community event at the park on the 23rd of October, and certainly in the emails to staff that have come in, as well as the survey results. Of course, there's a couple that prefer A or B, but overwhelmingly, Concept C got a lot of thumbs up. It may be that this has the larger, more expansive pump track that stretches across most of the north of the site. But in general, there's a lot of similarities as far as site uses and layout, like there is in Concept A. The spaces are a little bit more distinct, but it's managed in a less formal way. So the pathways are a little bit more flowing, looser, more meandering. There's no formal access through the park. Even the entrance from Magnolia Park doesn't drive straight down to Seymour Street, but it dives into the trees and out of the trees, and it approaches the community garden area in a slightly different way. That public restroom is nestled off to the side, maybe a little bit less prominent. It's not right on the pathway, but it's tucked off to the side a little bit. Generally in this concept, there's less of a distinction between the community garden and the park. You can see there's maybe an arc of fruit trees on the inside of the park that may be repeated on the outside of the path and extending along the path up to Magnolia Street. It kind of blurs the lines between what is the community garden and what is the rest of the park. And maybe this character feels a little bit more natural, feels a little bit more like it fits the overall site than some of the more formal geometry in Concept A and B. And speculating that that's what folks are really gravitating towards. The overall, as I mentioned, the overall character and spatial arrangement of this one is really what the public tended to gravitate to, with a couple of exceptions and a couple of additions. And I'm going to jump to this summary page here just to reiterate that C generally had the most specific support. But there are a few things that we saw on each of our different formats of public input. One is the addition of a small natural type play structure or climbing feature. And there are a lot of different approaches to natural play structures. These are small structures made of a material called robinia wood. This has a longer lifespan than cedar or redwood. It's all natural wood with stainless steel components. It didn't feel to us, and certainly didn't seem to feel to the community, that this was the type of place for brightly colored plastic slides and climbing huts like that. I think that people were really looking for something distinct here that didn't feel like it's an extension of Oak Avenue Park or Ocean View Park, that it had a little bit more of a, I don't want to keep saying natural, but a little bit more suited to its environment here. Again, as I mentioned, incorporating natural play areas, the ferry, the butterfly garden in Concept C, there seems to be a lot of support for that. Getting back to what I mentioned in Concept B is the idea for a small stage or amphitheater. There seemed to be some divide on the need for a structure like this. There seemed to be a lot of support for a stage, which could be used for demonstrations, education areas. A covered structure can support picnicking and protect picnickers from big, heavy eucalyptus leaves or eucalyptus nuts dropping onto their table. That structure could be an open lath type material so that there is some structure there, but it could be covered with a clear or a semi-transparent polycarbonate so it doesn't feel dark and heavy. It feels light and open, but you're still protected from the environments as well as the occasional drizzle that we're known to get here. The other thing that we're looking for, we're looking for commissioner support on or feedback on all of these, but the bocce courts in concept B, people seem to really like that inclusion, but it was mentioned in the Parks Master Plan, but there wasn't an overwhelming consensus that we needed to have bocce courts. And so we're interested to hear commissioner feedback on that too. I'm happy to turn off the screen share, but if the commissioners want to ask about features on any of the individual concepts, I'm happy to bounce back to those. Just let me know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tom and Scott. I think the way I'd like to proceed with this is to have our commissioners ask you clarifying questions at this point. Then I'd like to have the public comment on this, and then I'd like to come back to the commissioners for their input as to what it is that they, that they think is the best plan from their standpoint. So to go through those three, that kind of process. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So commissioners, can you raise your hand if you have actual questions about A, B, and C, or just overall any questions for Scott or Tom? Hillary?
Stack on the sideline.
Hillary, what happened to you?
There, now I'm unmuted.
There you go.
These are all gorgeous designs, so thank you, Tom. I'm really enjoying imagining this space. I think the question that came up for me was when you were talking about the lack of support for beach volleyball courts. It occurred to me that it might be a question of what people who saw this survey thought they were sort of providing feedback on, in the sense that I'm wondering if people didn't really realize that this could be an opportunity to have at least one beach volleyball court. And so potentially we didn't really hear that support for this in this park conversation, which, it's a single beach volleyball court is not something that the overall volleyball community is going to be heavily using on a regular basis. So I can picture that would be a reason that you wouldn't hear that feedback. And I guess the question I have is, from a procedural standpoint, if people actually are interested in sharing that they have support for beach volleyball, is it at this point, what is the feedback that you're looking for from the community so that voice is not lost? And what I'm seeing in the comments is also just this question of, if we are not having multiple courts at this park, how can the community hear about options for a larger scale 3-court situation? And that, I know, is, Tom, not a question for you, but potentially.
Yeah. Tom, do you want me to take a quick stab at this first on the bigger context, and then you can talk about this location specifically?
Yeah, that's fine, Matthew. Sure.
Yeah, so I think the bigger picture is we have certainly heard feedback from the community over the last couple of years that there is a desire for beach volleyball courts. So That is heard and it's being explored in a variety of different options and locations. And that's why we included it in one of the kind of the concept plans that people could, so they could visualize it. And Tom will probably speak to this a little bit more, but I think what I heard, especially when we did the open house a month or so ago at the park itself, is that the consensus from the community was that anything like that, bocce ball, volleyball, basketball court, any of that, they just didn't feel like this was the type of park where that would be appropriate. And the context I heard that in was the proximity to the homes, the fact that there are big tree canopies surrounding most parts of this property, the natural feel of the property. So I think that's what I took away from that. And I think Tom can provide some additional clarity. But certainly to the bigger question of, is beach volleyball something that could be considered somewhere else? Yes, and it is. And as those opportunities arise, we will make sure to do a similar process to make sure people have a chance to get their feedback in. Tom?
Yeah, I would just, I mean, you touched on it, but when my statement that there were very little support for it, and a lot of comments against the addition of either a beach volleyball court or a pickleball court, any sort of large formal sports court. That came from the folks I talked to, as well as the comments that people wrote at the meeting on site on the 23rd of October. I don't have, from a design standpoint, a court could fit on the site. And I think we wanted to show that because we knew that there was community-wide a desire for these opportunities. And I think that if the community consensus was that beach volleyball was something that, or pickleball, or a formal sports court was something that was really desired, that we located in the best place on site. And so that's what we aim to do on concept A. It's a little incompatible with the parks master plan. And again, the parks master plan isn't a checklist, but it is a much more active recreation opportunity than the general passive amenities that are outlined in the parks master plan. And since we use that as our guide, we didn't say, well, let's maximize the opportunity for volleyball or pickleball here, but let's show that if the city wants this to happen, we can make it happen. But it wasn't the focus of the design.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioners have a question? Pat?
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Adam. And Pat, did you also end up having any questions? I just want nod your head and I will then take you after. Great. Okay, go ahead, Adam.
So yeah, we definitely have commissioners on this particular Parks and Rec Commission that are very pro beach volleyball. So we've talked about that. You guys know it. I like the idea. I don't know if this is the best location for that, although I do love the idea, and we currently don't have it. What we do have in the community right now are areas where you can kind of climb and jungle gyms and things like that. I do like the natural wood aspect, or kind of like the nature aspect that you're talking about for this location. What we don't have currently is kind of what the park currently is, which is a little bit of a bike environment where people can do some jumps and move around, and there's some rope swings and things like that. So I like the concept that's keeping that as much in the theory of what we're going to move forward with, since that's kind of how the park is used currently, as possible. And I just wanted to kind of throw that input out there as much as possible to keep the active use as much as possible as it currently is being used. I think it's an active use area. So any of the plans that promotes that the most, I couldn't tell if it was A or C, is more, I knew it wasn't B, my perspective. And then as far as a stage, I think the stage, I still look at the stage as coming in more.
Adam, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can keep it to questions about any questions you have, not your opinions. We're going to get to that later. Right now, I'd like to get questions for clarifying the presentation that we just heard. And then we will listen to public comment so that we'll get input from the public. And then the commission will come back together and talk about their thoughts on what they feel is the best way forward.
Very good. I'm good.
Okay, Pat, do you have any clarifying questions?
No, I do not. I'll wait till the end.
Okay, well,
Thank
I
you
have,
for
Luis, I can't see you with because of the share screen. So I don't know if you have a question there or not. Do you have a question?
No, no
Okay.
question. No question at all.
All right.
I got
a
comments
question.
afterwards. But go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, I've got a couple of clarifying questions. When, Scott, you started your presentation, you showed in your, agricultural area. One, I believe, was agricultural area across Seymour Street. And the other was somewhere where the park, and next to the park. I saw two brown areas designated as agricultural.
Yeah, there is agriculture that takes place there currently across Seymour. You're correct.
Yeah, that's across Seymour, but then there was that little section attached to the park. If you look at your own diagram there and color chart, a color code, you will see two brown areas. One is across Seymour, but the other one is right somewhere. It's hard to tell, but it was right next to the park area we're talking about.
Scott, yeah, okay, you're going to show it.
Yeah, there we go. So
yeah, so what this is this this is the vegetation map that was included in the biological resource evaluation. And you are correct, the area just west of the park there is used for agricultural purposes. Here and there.
It's private
It's a private property.
It's a private
Yes, it's a
property.
private
Okay,
property
that's
owner,
what I wanted to
third-party
know.
property owner. So,
okay, does that property owner know that we are planning to do a park?
yes, absolutely. They've been noticed. We've sent them notices several times now, just courtesy notices about tonight's meeting, as well as the on-site. And they will be noticed more as we move through this process, especially once we get into the review of the coastal development permit, and they will receive more notices. So,
okay, excellent.
And we have not heard from them.
One of our participants who lives in that neighborhood just commented that it's a local family that lives on Magnolia that owns and farms those lots.
Excellent. All right. So the next question I have, and this plays into our ideas of even what to do with the park, is what about parking?
Yeah, and I can start us out. It has come, as I mentioned in the sort of the survey results, it has come up several times, you know, even during the on-site meeting. And, you know, we even in preliminary discussions with Tom, we thought it was appropriate to provide some expansion of the existing parking lot. And, you know, there is quite a bit of on-street parking, especially on Seymour, that is available close by to the park. So
Yeah, so I mean, we need to think of that. I'm just going to say we need to think of that in terms of what we're going to do there, because having things there that that might end up overwhelming the area with cars is something that we should keep in mind, you know, in terms of when we actually get into thinking about what's the concepts themselves. All right, those were the questions that I had. I think it would be good for us to move on to public comment. We've got quite a few participants, which is great, so that we will get input. Again, I will say that a lot of just to make a note, that a lot of the written comments that I've seen so far, there definitely is certainly support out there for people wanting volleyball. I can understand that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But other than that, Eddie, if you will take on public comment.
Matthew, you're the host right now, and I don't have the ability to do that.
Okay, so we'll start with Crystalline. Crystalline, I'm going to let you speak. I'm not sure if this is a holdover from before.
Oh, gosh, no, I'm sorry. Hold over.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Joe Fullerton, and that'll be followed by Ben Leffler-Little. Oh. Did Joe put his hand down? Okay. I don't know what happened to Joe, so we'll go to Ben Leffler-Little.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for putting this together. I'm a full disclosure member of the CFOG board, but I'm also a resident of Seymour Street here in Half Moon Bay and a second generation coast sider, and very excited to see the city doing things like this to make our coast side even more enjoyable for everyone. One of the things that I do want to comment on, and it's a related topic, but traffic on Seymour, particularly speeding down this street, has been a challenge for quite a bit of time. And it's particularly troublesome on the weekends. You get traffic backed up south of town and people get frustrated sitting in that traffic, and they, their Waze apps and other apps send them down this street as a way to get through the neighborhood to shortcut things, right? So you get people coming off the highway 60, 70 miles an hour down a really wide street. So I'm not saying that this group needs to solve that, but what I am saying is that there's general consensus and a lot of frustration of the residents of Seymour, myself included. Many of us have kids with that. And, I think it's just something to consider as we look to put a park in where we potentially have more community members accessing that park on nice, long, warm summer nights, and you get traffic running down the street, there's more chances for issues to pop up. And so the city would want to consider some kind of, I would say, very simple traffic abatement, speed humps, put some speed limit signs on this street, maybe the ones that blink when you go over a certain speed limit, those types of things that are fairly low cost. And I'm going to stop short of saying what everyone on the street wants, which is to actually put the cul-de-sac back and stop access from Highway 1. I know that's a pie in the sky dream, but something of that would probably be worth considering and just getting ahead of that particular challenge.
Okay, next up is Matthew Detone.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. So I echo the last caller. I'm not sure if it was the last caller, but there was an incident where a woman, somebody had set up a barricade on Seymour Street and somebody actually smashed right through it and kept on driving. So I live on Magnolia. I live on the south end of Magnolia. On the west end of Magnolia. And I love the concepts. We vote for concept C. It's great. I also have the community garden in between that's on Magnolia now, right across from the Seaside Kids place. My son is building some of those tracks that are on the current eucalyptus trail there. I would like to see part of this concept also include an opportunity for these kids to build, to dig, to build their own jumps or to build some jumps there. So if there was like a set portion of the pump track and then a portion where kids could have dirt and could build jumps. I think that there's lots of places like the Harvey West Pump Track in Santa Cruz, the Polo Grounds Pump Track in Aptos that are community built. And so it would be a fun kind of creative way for kids to get involved in building their own things. If there was a self-built element or a self-built element to your pump tracks. And I love the community gardens. I like C. I'm not sure about a volleyball court. It seems like a sandy volleyball court there would mean, a cat litter box. I do like the bocce ball, but I also want to be sensitive. I know a lot of the neighbors that live to the right and to the left of that park, and I want to be sensitive to the noise levels that those neighbors would have to have. I think that's that could be sensitive to them, but very supportive, support pump track and option C. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Charlie Hodgen.
Hi there. I live on Magnolia Street, and I'm just very much impressed with the effort that has gone into developing these 3 different options. I just wanted to put it out there, kind of speaking to what Matthew was speaking to. The kids have built what's there now. Is it necessary to change at all what's going on? That is it a requirement legally or otherwise for the city to make an improvement? And is there an appetite to allow what has occurred to continue to unfold? I don't know who can address my question, but I've watched children, a lot of them, build out what's been built. The ideas are really fantastic that are being presented. But in my mind, it begs the question, is it necessary to change and build it out further with these designs? The reason I say it is I grew up in somewhat of a city environment, but with open lots around where I grew up, and having that quality of it being unimproved and children using it as they will, particularly over the pandemic, was just powerful for me to watch. I'll leave my comment there.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgen.
Matthew, is there any way that you can respond to that at some level? Because
I'll respond to it when we get to once we finish public comment.
Okay.
Sure. Our last person with their hand raised is Abby Foster. Oh, looks like one more person raised their hand as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just want to start by saying that I was one of the people that was excited about the idea of a volleyball court, but I think you've convinced me that perhaps this isn't the perfect place for it. And I liked Hillary's suggestion of having a larger spot with more than one court. So I just wanted to sort of rescind my previous written comment. But I just wanted to say publicly, which I also put in writing to the panelists, but as a teacher from Hatch Elementary School, I really, really liked that idea of an outdoor learning space. Whether it be, I can't remember which plan had the outdoor learning space. Was it Plan A? Anyhow, the idea of having a place within walking distance. B. Okay, thank you, Paulette. Yeah. Having a place within walking distance of our school where we could take our students. We have almost 600 students at Hatch now, and whether it be to participate in the community garden or to learn about stewardship of the land or just to have a place to gather, it would be so powerful to have that spot. And so whether you keep it informal, just have it, just some logs that the kids can sit on, something that the previous commenter's idea of keeping it kind of similar to how it is, keep it low key, but just having a place where we could take our kids who don't always, a lot of them don't live within walking distance of these parks, and to have them have the opportunity to see our city and participate in that way would be really powerful. So I'd love it I don't know if any of these, if it's ever possible to combine concepts from different plans into one or how that could work, but I would love to see that. included in whatever plan goes forward.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Next up, we have Rick Barker.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I want to first give thanks to Tom and Scott. These designs and all your drawings are beautiful, and all of your hard work really looks great for this park. As long as I'm thanking people, the Parks Commissioner, the Mayor, and the Parks Rec people, the biking community really appreciates that this effort is being led by you guys. I would like to say that as far as community built, community maintained, community that is designed, speaking for myself and part of the mountain bike community, that's a huge part of the culture. Kids learn so much when they don't even realize they're learning. They learn physics, they learn trigonometry before they even know what those words are by putting jumps and rolling over them. So as part of the mountain bike social scene here, I would like to offer our help going forward and partnering hopefully with you guys in the future with maintenance and, teaching kids things about how to properly maintain and build within that park. So I applaud your efforts, voted for Concept C. So thank you guys. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Next up is Robin King. Robin, you can unmute yourself and speak now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I live on Magnolia Street and almost across from the park. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for the really nice event and presentation that you had recently there. So I'm thinking of not just uses for the park, but compatible user groups. So we know we're going to have a pump track for the kids who have been building this and have been just enjoying that area. So now what kind of user groups would go with that? We probably don't want to bring in people from outside the area because these kids are largely on their own. So I would like to make sure that it stays for people near the neighborhood. I'm worried, like a lot of the folks on Seymour, that we get a lot of people coming in off the highway. And I'm afraid that we might attract people to that park if they see restrooms, parking, picnic tables. So I'm a little bit worried about combining that with a community park where we should know these kids. So that's why I really like the community gardens, because we have people we know, the kind of folks who could watch over the kids. And I would prefer to have it be quiet, definitely not a big pavilion, and definitely not amplified music. I don't think that's the place. It's too small. I think there are a lot of opportunities for something like that elsewhere. Besides, if we put a roof over it, it's going to get awfully cold, and I don't think it's going to be used very much. So those are my comments, and just thank you so much for all the work you've done. And I really support the kids being able, like others have said, to create their own pump tracks. And I'm hoping we get a couple of civil engineers out of it. So thanks again. You guys take care.
Thank you, Ms. King. And our final speaker is Joe Lease. And I'm trying to, for some reason, oh, there we go. Oh. Joe, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Matt and Matthew, and thank you all, especially Tom and Scott, for the presentation. I think it was a very well done. I am part of the Coastside Friendship Community Gardens, or CFOG for short, And I want to offer to not only the listeners, but to the commissioners also, that we are available to answer any kind of conceptual questions or anything like that with the ideas that we see, primarily the community garden being a provider of education, both for kids from the local school areas, for neighbors in the area, for anyone who wants to understand what they can do in their own backyard, they can come and learn about. That's just one of the many aspects, along with all the other food security for the community and et cetera. So we're here as available for question and answers or anything you need. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Joe. We actually had a few more people raise their hands. Next up is Joe Fullerton.
Hi, all. Thanks so much for holding this forum. Really great conversation. And this is my second city-oriented meeting in 2 nights. So this park is right down the street from my house. I have a 5-year-old son. I'll just say flat out that I think any like fairy garden area is kind of silly. And I also think expanding the parking lot area is a little bit unnecessary. I'd really like to see areas utilized in a much more active way. Concept C in terms of the pump track is wonderful. Love the idea of having like a create your own section of the pump track as part of this plan. I'm really glad to see all the interest in community gardening. That's something that my son and a lot of his friends are really into. I don't know if it needs to be as necessarily as expansive as it is right now in terms of its conceptual footprint. I do like the idea of beach volleyball. I'm not so much worried about the seeds from the eucalyptus. While it may be a cat box, that would just be, that's the same for any type of active sports zone that we might put in there. But I love the idea of having a more active zone there and making it more of a full family experience, especially if there's going to be folks there that are doing gardening projects that can bring, all ages of kids that like to bike, kids that like to play volleyball, kids that like to just play in the sand or, play with a pile of sticks. That's great. The concept about the climbing area and the climbing apparatus, really love that too. Love to see something like that incorporated, perhaps with some of the existing trees and or in collaboration with the pump track. I think those are really wonderful concepts. And so really appreciate all the time and effort that's going into this thus far. I'm hoping that we can take the best elements of all these different parts and put them together for the best community benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fullerton. We now have Sean Guzman Murphy.
Hi, thanks for having us. Echoing everybody, we're very, very supportive of the park plan. We live on Seymour Street. I am concerned about having additional parking, bringing more traffic where there's ample parking today on Seymour. And as it's a community park, people can definitely walk and bike to the park and make it a local park for the residents of Half Moon Bay. We support a volleyball court. We are concerned a little bit about the sand and animals in it and would be more supportive of a hard court for players to use, especially as we have beach volleyball courts on Kelly and up in Miramar. Additionally, the last thing we want to make sure that the city is looking at is the use of bathrooms, cleaning up garbage, and what we can do to prevent vandalism at the park so that everyone is reaping the rewards, maintaining the park for years to come, rather than watching something beloved get destroyed through people with bad intent. That's all we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And Madam Chair, I believe that's our last public speaker.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, all the people who have shown up tonight to participate and give us your input. It's all very valuable, and I especially appreciate the fact that many of you actually live right around that park area. So more meaningful because it's right next door. All right, so I'm going to bring this back to the commissioners now. And I'd like to make sure that all of you, each one of you gives us your input as to what you've heard and what you think you would like to see, what you think would be best use for Magnolia Park.
Madam Chair, would you like me to answer that question from earlier?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Matthew. I'm glad you didn't forget.
Just to
And
remind
Matthew,
everybody.
Matthew, when you do that, can you also, I like that garbage question too, because I realize what a problem that is in Half Moon Bay overall. And just that currently that park has no garbage receptacle there and it stays relatively clean. But if you turn it into with a picnic table and this and that, like what our plans are.
Sure. I'll start with the question about the bike track. And just to remind everybody, the question was, currently there is kind of a makeshift grassroots bike track in the trees out there that kids from the neighborhood have made. We've met lots of the kids. They're great kids. They're out there using it. They take really good care of it. And so the question was, can that be sustained or replicated in some way that this future bike track, if it's included as a component of this future park, can retain that feature where kids can come out and build their own things and, engineer their own track. And that's a real throwback to how many of us who grew up on the coast, that was our experience is there wasn't very much developed stuff here. We went out and made our own stuff. I'll kind of answer it in two ways. The first is, we're not sure exactly what can and can't be done in regards to leaving it the way that it is. The city gets certain liability protections if we follow certain standards for the skate park is a great example. A skate park comes with massive liability. It's a place where people get hurt. And the only reason cities can have skate parks is because there's state code that is written that if we build a skate park to certain standards, have certain signage requiring things like elbow pads and helmets and those types of things, and do not supervise it, that we're actually not liable for an injury out there. So kids get hurt on it, the city can't be sued for it. And I'll promise you, as soon as the city can be sued for it, that's probably the day we have to close the skate park because the liability would be too high. There are similar provisions around something like this. And so I think the balance is protecting the city from liability, because if the city gets sued, there's no parks anywhere. But allowing kids in the community that opportunity to make it their own. And I think Mr. Barker, who spoke earlier, really hit the nail on the head. Mr. Barker is part of a group called the Coastside Mountain Bikers. We've also engaged, and they work with a group called the Santa Cruz Mountain Trail Fellowship, which used to be the Santa Cruz Mountain Bikers. And they're a nonprofit based out of Santa Cruz. I will say founded and led by a Coastsider from Montera, which is really cool. And they build pump tracks. That's what they do. All the pump tracks down in Santa Cruz and in the Santa Cruz County area were built by this group under different types of contracts. And one of the things they do is they help with maintenance, and they organize, they do training on how to maintain these properties, and they organize volunteer teams to do regular maintenance. And that's going to be really important for us as a city to have a sustainable way to keep this pump track maintained if we move forward with it. And so I think that is the mechanism, is that those groups are open to all. So kids and families who are interested in the pump track can participate in one of these groups that then hosts and organizes these maintenance days and these design days, and of course will include the community in the design. So it will not be as organic as it is right now, where kids just go out there anytime they want with shovels and build stuff. It'll be a little bit more structured, but I still think that opportunity to participate is there. We'll confirm that. There's still a lot for us to explore. The first step was to understand if this was something that the community really wanted and the place for it, which thus far the feedback says that. And again, as somebody who grew up on the coast side and built all kinds of bike tracks all over the place and did these things, I understand exactly where those comments are coming from, and I think they are an important component here. So there's probably a way to meet those needs in the right way to protect the city from liability. And then just to Commissioner Eisen's comments, when you talk about restrooms, you talk about trash, that does create new elements for a property. And yeah, there's not issues out there, but that's because it's completely undeveloped and rarely used other than, people just kind of tromping around in the woods and riding their bikes. I think we've done a good job over the last couple of years as a city. We've got our public works director here, and he's worked hard with his team to develop trash receptacles and approaches that minimize the amount of trash that finds its way outside of the garbage cans. We've got a good team that takes care of these parks. Restrooms, one of the things we're finding is automatic locking and unlocking mechanisms to control access. And so we'll use what we've learned to maintain this park. And I'll say, going back to the Parks and Rec master plan, that was one of the key comments is before we do new things, we've got to maintain what we have. So as we move forward with developing this park, it can't be so big and so involved that we can't maintain it and take care of it for the community. So that's always something that we think about and will be an important part of the final design and concept to move this park forward.
Thank you so much, Matthew. That helps a lot in giving us perspective on these ideas. All right, so let's begin. Who would like to begin with what they think about obviously, just to state the obvious, we've got a pump track, we've got a community garden. That is in all the plans, those seem to be part of any plan. So the question is, ideas of how and what else should be in that park area.
Chair Eisen, if I may jump in, because it's something that one of our attendees, Abby Foster, mentioned. We've labeled each of these as concepts, concept A, B, or C, and not option A, B, or C. And we did that for a reason. It's because we don't want you or the community to look at them as only A, only B, only C. But we're really looking for input on how to combine all the various elements that we show to an ultimate master plan that has as much community support as possible. So I just wanted to get that out there before.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Understood. That's why I put it the way I did, which is we've got these two elements. Now what else do we want in there? What now that you've seen all these three concepts, which were great, by the way. So, okay, who'd like to begin? Luis.
So one of the public speakers actually mentioned about speeding. I agree. If we're gonna have a park there, we need to do something about the speeding. Because I live on Poplar and I'm always in my garage and I see people just smashing down trying to make that light, and I am not okay with that. I don't feel comfortable with my kids playing outside in the front yard at all. So if we could do something about also, or implementing something to do with speeding, maybe some little speed bumps or something, that'd be great. Maybe also, maybe a basketball court or something for we could add in there as well. I'm a big basketball fan, so that'd be a big plus. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. Pat?
Yep. Hi, I'm here. Yeah. I love parks. Parks are my favorite place in the whole wide world. And and the community garden. And I was introduced to community gardens when I moved here to Half Moon Bay. And in fact, in the early stages of developing them. And I absolutely love them. I'm a gardener at heart. So I'm, always looking to dig in the dirt and plant stuff. And I love it. So community garden, ADA, so important. And I've been over to that park. I like to go over there and kind of just check it out. And it really is. It's such an inviting place. And it's pretty special. And one of the things about moving here to Half Moon Bay, because I love parks, and I grew up in a city, we had parks. We rode our bikes, we walked to parks. It was very convenient. And what's happening, what I'm experiencing with Half Moon Bay and the parks is that everybody has an opportunity to go to a special park. it's not like you're stuck with one or two parks. We have several parks, and each one of them is kind of unique. And so, now with Magnolia Park, it certainly is a beautiful location. And I love the fact of the bike activity. I have all my kids and my grandchildren they do all that jumping with the bikes and stuff like that. And it's wonderful because, they know what to do and they're happy doing it. Also the walkability, it's really a place where you can stroll through, and the parking, which, I was there when we had that open house, and I was really surprised that it was just very convenient. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't overwhelming with cars. It was really nice. And quite a few people were from out of the area. Also, the learning space. And Abby Foster mentioned that. And, for children, it doesn't take much to develop a learning space. And this here is definitely a wonderful example of introducing children to a habitat and to really learn. And there's, so many different ways of learning, and especially because they can walk from the school and then having that area where they could actually, just the raised area, whatever they called it. But anyway, I'm just real excited about it, and whatever support, I'm there, and I appreciate all of you and your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next,
I'll go.
To Adam. Okay.
So, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for putting this together. Beautiful, beautiful information. I'm so happy about the survey results and all the participants tonight, and listening to everybody is very welcome. In terms of this park, the way I look at it, and some people talked about this, and I do see this park as a place that we have organized parks in Half Moon Bay already, some of them, and they're used very well. I love the fact that kids get their hands dirty, that they build, that they're doing things that, like somebody said earlier, it's like somebody said something about engineers are going to come out of this. I love that fact that kids are busy there, both creating jumps and also then using their bikes. Bikes have become, since the pandemic in particular, just a very highly used vehicle for an outlet of energy from children in Half Moon Bay. We already have parks with playgrounds, so I really think that differentiating this park as much as possible to something different, and almost kind of like, almost like the next level up in a child's development, from Ocean View Park, which isn't far from this park in neighborhood, is what would make it, the next thing that could really stand out, because it's great for kids to have things to do. If we incorporate the community garden into it as well, I like that oversight aspect and people being busy in the park as is. And again, that kind of goes into the dirt, and just, I look at this park and I think of dirt. And so it's kind of like you've got people getting their hands dirty in a garden. You've got children getting their hands dirty, building jumps, and that kind of aspect of the park. But my general vote perspective is to keep it as wild and kind of, back to that natural concept as possible. I don't particularly think it's a great space for a pavilion or stage. I do see this as a neighborhood, and I do want to respect the neighbors as much as possible. I wouldn't want somebody throwing a late night party or kind of doing a speech or, plays going on there. That to me is Carter Park, which will eventually be developed. And that seems like that venue for that type of thing. So I would want to keep that away. And then I'm not sure if people were open to talking about this, but I kind of, in my mind, got a concept of just people being scared that, homeless people could move into the area. I was maybe reading into some people's comments, and, so setting up the park in a way that the neighbors don't feel like that would happen as much, whatever that means. But I think, again, that's keeping it less developed than more developed, if that makes any sense. And you guys all know, and we have so many commissioners here that want the sand volleyball courts as much as possible. We got them set up at Kelly at one point. I thought that was fantastic. They were used a lot. And then we'll get them set up there again, which I think is also great. I think that is a great location for it. As much as I want to see other locations for the sand volleyball, this might not be the best spot for it, unfortunately, because I'd love to see it happen. But I love the diversification idea of our park concepts. So we're not just building the same basic replica of like one park here and then, neighborhood over, it's the same kind of park, and neighborhood over, it's the same kind of park. I look at this park really, if I could design it myself as much as possible, as kind of like a ropes course park. It's kind of like there's all the biking aspect, and then the ropes and climbing and structures like that, to really diversify the way kids interact with their neighborhoods. And I think you've got a lot of that in the different concepts out there. So I think I'm excited to move on that. Again, I want to focus as much as possible on natural and activity. So those are the things. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Hillary, do you want to say anything? Yeah, good.
Okay, I'm going to try to go quickly over the things that I agree with, because I don't want to just re-say the same things. But speed bumps, yes. Frenchman's Creek has speed bumps all over the place. We have so much more traffic. I don't know why Poplar doesn't have speed bumps. And I think if this park goes in, there should also be speed bumps on that street, because we need to stop with the speeding. I love the supporting kids in the creation of this ramp as much as the bike stuff as much as possible. I think we have way too many sterilized playgrounds for kids, and any opportunities we can to give them a wilder experience. I think we should take advantage of one climbing structure idea that was very simple in Lake Tahoe, in Tahoe City, is just this massive boulder that kids climb on all the time. And I don't know if that would be a very simple thing that would enhance that kind of feeling of the pump track situation, but a single boulder, very heavy, but also a possible fun way to resolve that. I know that, so the feedback sounds a little mixed on the beach volleyball, sand volleyball court in that area. I personally live on Poplar Street, and I would love to be able to walk to a beach volleyball court, even if it were a single one, and play on it. I know that several of my neighbors feel the same way. I'm not obviously going to force my opinion on the volleyball court. We must have one there, as well as a place where it's better suited for having multiple courts. I don't think we could have more than one there. But in terms of the biggest reservation that I heard was around the sand getting dirty. And I will say that at Flood Park in Palo Alto, or Menlo Park, they manage the sand fine. They have so many wild creatures living in that park that it sometimes is comical to see them running around. And they just cover them when it's not in use with a big sheet, and then take them away when they're gone. And that park constantly has, a protected surface when not in use, and regularly families come and they just play on that court. And I can picture this park with all its different uses bringing something to everyone. And it feels like a park for older kids, which we just do not have in Half Moon Bay. And I feel like this pandemic, we've let our teenagers down so much, and we need to find ways to offer them investments too. And so having organized activities is an easier way for teenagers to come and hang out. And in fact, in the Parks Master Plan, we specifically refer to teenagers and having struggles serving them. And this sort of pump track, this volleyball courts, they're both ways that teenagers actually engage with the outdoors. So I just urge us to really think about that as we move forward. And okay, I think that's all of my additional comments. So I really appreciate the community for coming and sharing all their thoughts. It's super exciting to do this. So thank you. And thank you to all you artists that designed this.
Okay, very good, Hillary. I'm going to give you my assessment, and then maybe to help you guys, maybe we can go through it and see if we can get some consensus with our commissioners on some of these different aspects, okay? So I love the idea of a volleyball court, but not here. And the reason is that I think, A, it's going to cause more issues, people coming in, parking issues. And I think that it's also dangerous, frankly, because that ball, we're trying to put a lot of stuff in not a big area. And balls can go out of the court and hit somebody in the garden or knock a kid off their bike. I just think that it's just not the right place because it's not a big enough area. That's really it. I also, agree that I don't like the idea of like any kind of large pavilion area. But I do like the idea, as Abby Foster put in, to have some kind of area that would be like a demonstration area, an area where, demonstrations can be given on gardening techniques for kids to learn about the garden. Like we want to, I think, maximize the idea that, not the idea, but the reality that if we're going to have a community garden, let's work it. Let's make the most of it. Let's help other people think about that for themselves if they have, if they have the inclination and the land to do it. I have to wonder about picnic tables because I'm with Adam and some of the other people who have spoken. My concern with picnic tables is, again, garbage, of course, but also it can bring in elements that we don't want to have come into set up life in the park. Because I think that this, as somebody said, I like the idea that this is more of an activity park. You're either actively gardening or you're actively on the pump track, and or you're rather than like just a hangout. Rather than a hangout place. So a question about benches for sure, but picnic tables, I'm not strong on that one. I like the natural climbing apparatus idea because for people who are, let's say, even coming to do gardening, they have a child or that's something for them to do. And so that, again, there's engagement. I really like the bocce ball court, which is why I liked Plan B, because so far we have nothing in Half Moon Bay for public bocce ball playing. And I think it goes very nicely with the garden idea because it's a low activity level. It also, obviously good for, more mature people as well as young people. It's a real family thing. That's the thing. It really brings in all the age groups and is a low, low level, mellow activity and would fit well with that scenario. So those are my thoughts. So having said that, let's see if we have consensus. I know I absolutely support the speed bumps. I think that's really important, especially bringing people into that area. So let me hear from, let's start with speed bumps. Let's make sure that gets into the plan if we're all agreed. Let's see if that's something that, because I know, Luis, you support that. You're the one, yeah. Adam?
Yeah, speed bumps make sense to me. I mean, for me, it makes sense from a protection standpoint. Like I follow all that. My big concern with it randomly, which is the opposite, but I'd love to hear from people that live on that street if they want them or not, because going over multiple speed bumps every day all of a sudden changes the way you interact with your own street. Like, and if people are okay with it, then I'm all in, because for protection purposes it makes sense. But well,
I think that's a good idea, is that obviously the city would do their due diligence in getting the input from those folks. But as far as a recommendation from us, I would recommend that we move on the speed bumps. Hillary, are you good with that too?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. And Pat? Yeah, maybe you can all keep your mics on, unmute yourselves so that we can have the discussion ongoing here.
Yes, I live in an area where we have several speed bumps, so I'm for it.
Okay. So, all right, so we can put that one in. How do we feel? It sounds like most of us are also supportive of the natural climbing apparatus.
Yes.
Okay, so let's put that into the hopper. And how did you feel about the picnic tables?
I don't think it's a necessity.
Okay.
Maybe down the road, but it just doesn't seem like that's the place where you go have lunch.
No, I feel like this is an active park. Like there are different things to do there, and
yeah,
that's kind of the idea.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Tom, you taking all of this in? Yeah, okay. Next, let's talk about the area, to have some kind of area for, for demonstrations, demonstrations and learning. As Abby said, she'd like to be able to take her kids from school. Cool. And yeah, so go ahead.
So what I'd like to say is, we talked about the pavilion piece, but I think you're very right on that. That's maybe not appropriate for that particular location, but at some point it may be. But to have like a designated area, where a teacher could have the kids know that that's where they're going to be, or where to meet, and I think that's an important piece. So anyway, that's mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to throw out there really quick. If you've been to the library, behind the children's space in the library, there's stair-stepped up just maybe 3-4 feet up, and it creates kind of a mini amphitheater that is not for music and not for big parties, but it does create kind of a learning area. I'm not saying that's the answer, but that might be the kind of thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking like that too, Matthew. That was good. Yeah.
I think, though, that you could have 1 or 2 benches.
Yes, no, I said benches, definitely benches.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. How did the rest of you feel about bocce, which is, as I say, not available anywhere else in the city in a public space?
I just want to address one other volleyball related thing, because there's a lot of technical things around having a volleyball court. And just to be clear, again, you can have a volleyball court. They have them in neighborhoods with netting so that balls cannot escape the region.
Right.
It's just a simple matter of setting up netting. So if we don't want a volleyball court, that's one thing, but it shouldn't be because of problems that are not actually easily addressed. And that is something that can be addressed. So back to bocce, I support bocce. And I think I agree with you that it would be great to have that in our community. And again, it fits with the feeling of an active park where there are multiple things for people to do that are of diverse ages.
Great.
So I'd like to address that issue about the bocce. I play, and what I found, and I wasn't even aware of it, but you don't talk. You don't talk when you play bocce. you know, and sometimes, you know, you're having a little chit chat here, everybody gets freaked out. The bocce ball players. So is it going to be an asset, or is it going to be, oh, well, we just want to have one? I think it's something that probably is to do a survey and see how many people are really going to go there to play bocce, you know?
Pat, this is part of our Parks Master Plan. So we already went through the whole exercise of what it is that we want to see in our parks. When we did this, what was it, 5 years ago, something like that. And what I'm saying is, so far that has not happened.
Right.
We have not addressed putting in that into any of our, this is our first opportunity to actually finally do it.
Right, definitely. And I think as the city does, and is to really evaluate the need, you know, what's the need and what's the want? So I think that's something, you know, we need to look at, because I don't know if you're aware of it, but Ocean Colony had 2 bocce ball courts and teams, and they ended up closing them. So
yeah, but we don't know why. They had plenty of participation, but that's you know, that was at Mullins, and that's a whole that's a whole different story. But you know,
anyway, I think it's something we need to if people are interested in it, then I think they should let the city know, like everything
but they
else.
have let Pat. What I'm trying to tell you is before
I got your message.
Before you, yes, okay.
Pat, I love bocce. However, I'm maybe not as competitive as you because I do chat and talk when I'm playing. And there's a lot of yelling at the dog to stop retrieving.
No, I'm a chatter.
But that is why I think that a bocce court would be great here, because it is informal, as I think one of our participants is noting, that you could have informal, non-tournament related bocce.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're not, you know, playing like a tournament, but it does get very interesting.
And it's small, right?
It's part of the personality of a bocce player.
Yeah.
You know where it all started, so.
But I do think it's a very small footprint, and
yeah,
probably easy to squeeze in, and could be really well used.
Oh yeah, possibly, yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm getting some comments. Our comments, some from our participants, is you know favorable to bocce.
Yeah.
So you know, so so hopefully we are moving forward with that idea for here. So I think if I'm missing something, or Tom, if you want additional input on specifically something else that we can help you with, but otherwise, I think we've done.
Let's go back to the sand volleyball real quick, just in case. So I just want to firmly express my own personal preference here. So this is, you know, not speaking on behalf of the community per se, but when it comes to sand volleyball in Half Moon Bay, we don't have currently right now, as it stands, we have not one sand volleyball court, period, right now. And if, you know, the ability to create a sand volleyball court, the footprint of this area seems so small to me that I don't think we can encompass everything that I personally want in this, and that's why I'm almost willing to forego. But everybody says, "Oh, well, we'll put it somewhere else." Well, where the heck else are we really going to put it? You know, we don't.
And when are we going to get this done? Because we need to do it ASAP.
Right. I mean, that's how I feel about the sand volleyball court too. And when we did establish them at the Kelly area, they were used, and they weren't. Now, I guess this is a plus or minus. They weren't just used by us, by people in the community and by the volleyball clubs. I saw people use them on weekends, and you know they were in constant use, and it just made, for me personally, I felt very happy about that. Now that could bring different energy to this area. which is, possibly the upside and the downside. Again, I talked about my goal is to make this as natural of an area as possible. And the volleyball court kind of takes away from that ish. But if I could have my personal druthers, I would forego other things for the volleyball court if it was like if and one or the other. But if we can't make it happen, then, the pump track area and having that secondary use for the teenagers is really kind of where I'm going with the concept of this park, because back to what Hillary said, back to what our master plan says, we don't really have anything that really is capturing that teenager market for parks. Besides, possibly you could say that the skate park does that slightly, and it does, and it occupies some of that energy, but really trying to give the youth an outlet.
Thank you. I agree with that too.
Yeah, there's so many things we all want. And what we don't have tonight is the pickleball crowd. Because they're the big time too. So, it's not easy coming up with, given our small footprint as a whole.
Well, the pickleball crowd, don't forget. I mean, I don't know why this isn't used more, but at the middle school, we have pickleball courts. And again, that's just, I don't know why those aren't accessed more often and why those are closed off so much. Well, hopefully as we work with the school department, but we kind of already have exactly what we need in this community. We just need access. I mean, that's really all we're talking about.
Yes, on pickleball and Cunha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioners, I have an update here in just a little bit.
Made in heaven.
Commissioner Eisen, I've got a good update relevant to that comment here, just a few minutes.
Great, Eddie, go ahead.
Oh, that's for the next item.
Oh, yeah. Next item. Okay. Oh, excellent. Okay. So
I guess my point is, sorry, real quick on that. It already, like the pickleball, we got that taken care of. Pickleball's taken care of. We still don't have volleyball taken care of. I love the bocce ball idea. Anything we can do to let people recreate outside and that we don't currently have in this community, I think is just such an asset at this point. So I love those ideas.
Yep.
Okay. So I think Tom and Scott, thank you again. I think we've done our, I think we've, worked on this subject quite a bit here, and hopefully we've given you enough feedback to move forward with your next steps.
Yeah, thank you for not just to the commissioners, but also to the large number of attendees who provided input. It's very helpful. I know the city loves it. We certainly love public input. Getting a survey back with 99 responses and standing out there in the parking lot at Magnolia Park on a beautiful afternoon with 60, 70 people around was really overwhelming. So there's a lot of enthusiasm for this park. We're really fortunate and really excited to be working on it with the city. I just want to leave you with one issue because there's a lot of support. I've heard a lot of support from you folks as well as from the attendees on making a more active park. And I've also heard a lot of concern about parking. And those two issues in our city code are directly related. Because if it's a passive park, passive recreation only requires one on-site parking space for every acre of passive recreation areas. But active recreation areas requires one parking spot for every 8,000 square feet. So it's a 5-to-1 increase when you go from active recreation areas to passive recreation areas. There may be some room for interpretation
when it comes to what is active versus what is passive. But it's just something to be aware of. It's something that we're certainly going to be thinking of as we take all of this feedback we've received, look at the concepts that we have, and start refining it into a master plan. Because what we don't want is a very active park with 40 parking spaces on site, because that wouldn't suit anybody's needs. That would be a real shame. So just something to be aware of.
Yes, good. Thank you, Tom. Very important input.
That's a great clarifying point.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Thank you.
I think that it would actually be interesting to ask this question of two things. Like, one is how do you maybe split up the park into acknowledging what is actually active and what's not, but then also the fact that this is like the active part is actually a biking place is an interesting thing about this, particularly because it is way easier to bike to a biking park than it is to drive. And most people in the active part will probably be wanting to bike because that is the activity. So I don't know technically how that works with the laws, but I certainly would be looking at things like fractions of activity versus not in the park.
Well, fortunately, we have a planning commission that can parse those details very thoroughly for us.
I like the semantics, Hillary. I like where you're going.
All right, very good. Thank you, everybody. Excellent. Let's move on to other things. How about our city council updates?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, thanks everybody. That was a really great session. And, we don't get to, we can't do that every single meeting, although we've got some good upcoming meetings for you that will hopefully be like this, but it is really great when we get the community and the commissioners and all these creative juices flowing. It's really a great part about our jobs. So thank you. We've had actually 4 meetings since our last commission meeting because we have this weird holiday schedule and we held a special meeting. So I'll just really hit the high points, try to keep it quick. We are at 8 p.m. I don't think we need to officially extend it, but I just want to acknowledge that we're past the regular schedule of this meeting. So really quickly, on the 2nd of November and last night on the 7th of December, the council continued to adopt a resolution allowing for remote meetings. And at the time that remote meetings are going to be discontinued, or we're definitely looking at hybrid meetings. But at the time we start moving in that direction and bringing people back in person, we'll be given some notice. So we'll be able to plan and prepare for that. Also on the 2nd, the council authorized an action to move forward with acquiring some properties on the Poplar Bluffs. This is something we've been working on for a while now, and this is related to the Poplar Gateways project, which several commissioners participated in a big workshop a couple of years ago in relation to the future of the coastal trail and the Poplar Beach area, and knowing that bluff erosion is going to change the natural environment out there. And so in anticipation of some of that, we're working towards acquiring properties through special funding that is set aside and was received specifically for this purpose. And so you'll be seeing that over the next several months, the city acquiring properties out there. And that's all geared towards this future concept, relocation of the coastal trail and envisioning the Poplar Gateways area. And then just of interest is we had an update. The census numbers are out for 2020. Really quickly, anecdotally, you can dig in later if you're interested in this. There's more data coming out. A couple of interesting anecdotes is as a community, our population has not really changed over the last 20 years. And our population continues to age. We're an older community than a lot of communities. We have a lot of seniors, which moves that median or mean age up a little bit. And we know we've always had a very large and strong Latinx population, and that continues. But we have a growing Chinese population, which is really interesting. And In my observation and the work that I do, that's mostly related to the senior center. But as we see that demographic grow, the work that we do as a city is going to have to change as we look at adding additional language options and interpretation options and just the cultural work that we do. So it's interesting, and I think it relates directly to recreation because different cultural groups have different needs and experiences and passions. And so we'll have to be thinking about that as we plan for recreation in the future. The November 9th meeting was a special meeting, and it was all focused on housing. The City Council held a very large housing workshop where Jill Ekus, our Community Development Director, went through and presented on several city-owned sites as well as other sites that could potentially be used for affordable housing, which is of great need in our community. Of note to this commission, and there will be more details on it in later portions of this meeting, is we've talked about opportunities for passive recreation at the 880 Stone Pine property, which is where our corporation yard is, and we recently acquired for that purpose. At this housing workshop, the City Council identified the non-yard, the non-corporation yard portions of this property as a potential housing site, and we are being directed to explore the feasibility of that. And so for the time being, that is the focus. The trail piece, there is an easement along the creek that is already set aside for trail and trail recreation purposes. But as far as other things like a community garden or some sort of passive outdoor recreation, that's definitely something we would have to explore after we've explored the housing piece. So just wanted to make you aware of that if you were not aware, and we'll keep you posted as that progresses, because obviously that's something that we had talked about in the past. On November 16th, the two items that I think relate to this group were an update on the Coast Side Recovery Initiative, which is being spearheaded by the city, but is collaborative across the Coast Side with government agencies and community members. And the 15 recommendations from our recovery task force were presented. And I'd encourage you to go to the website and check out the recommendations and learn more about what this group did to identify improvements to our economy going forward. And of course, there's going to be several years of implementation and work to ensure that this is a sustainable process that we actually see things implemented from. The other thing that was presented on the 16th was a first reading of an electrification ordinance. This is not the meeting to get into the details of that, but if it's something you're interested in, it does affect all members of our community. On December 7th, we received a presentation, which was yesterday. We received a presentation. Oh, and I just wanted to remind our commissioners, we want to keep our videos on so that we can maintain our presence here in the meeting. So if possible, keep your videos on during the meeting.
Sorry, can you just tell us where we can find the those 10 recovery bullet points? I was looking at the agenda and I didn't see them there.
I will, they were in the agenda from the 16th as an attachment. Now there's a special meeting at 6 that was dedicated to that piece, but I will post later on in this meeting, I'll throw a link in the chat to the Recovery Task Force website, which will have more information. Thank you. Last night at our council meeting, we received an update from the county on the Connect the Coast Side project, which looks at transportation, but also of all types across the entire coast side. And I think of note from that is the connection of the parallel trails that run along the highway. The city has plans to ultimately have west side and east side connections going up and down our city limits. And the county has planned their connections to that going north throughout the rest of the coast side. And so that'll be of interest as we continue to talk about bike trails and transportation here in the city. The council adopted the art policy. So thank you so much for all of your work on that. We brought that to you twice. Lots of work went into that, lots of feedback. And the council was really, really pleased with that. So that policy has been adopted. And then, of course, we'll talk about the future steps that we can take around public art. But that first step was to get that policy adopted. So thank you so much for all your work on that. The council also directed staff to develop a vaccination policy for city staff and our contractors. And this impacts recreation because, as you know, our recreation classes are led by contract instructors. And so that's a consideration we'll have to fit into the policy that is drafted at the staff level. Additionally, as we talk about building parks, construction contracts will be impacted by this as well. So it's something I encourage you to follow and think about and potentially provide feedback on. We're working on the policy. It'll come back at a future council meeting for discussion. And I do think it's important for this commission to be following that and thinking about it, because there are pretty widespread consequences to taking some actions along those lines. And then the rest of the meeting last night was dedicated to a few new ordinances, the disposable food waste ordinance, which is coming down from the state and has to be adopted at a local level. And then the electrification ordinance, and which was revised after its original first reading for a new first reading, but approved last night. And so it'll come forward for a second reading at the final meeting of this year. And then an ordinance relating to solar panels, photovoltaic on homes and businesses, and batteries. And again, it's something that may be of interest to everybody in our community. And that is it for council updates. A lot going on, and our council is working very, very hard. And we just appreciate your support in guiding some of our perspectives and the work we do with the council. Chair Eisen, you're on mute.
Muted. Thank you so much, Matthew. That was great. That was excellent. All right. On to recreation updates. Take it away, Eddie.
Thank you, Chair Eisen. I'm going to just lead with the biggest news for recreation, and Commissioner Eisen touched on it just a little bit ago. We had discussed over the last several months that the city and the school district and the Boys and Girls Club have been working really hard on developing a facility usage MOU between our three groups that would allow the recreation department to start offering some more recreation programming utilizing the school district and the Boys and Girls Club property across the street, the Boys and Girls Club Event Center and the Cunha tennis courts. And since we haven't met in a long time, in that period since our last meeting, we've actually finalized that MOU. And we had our first usage last Sunday, which allowed us to start our brand new drop-in basketball program at the event center, as well as being able to start utilizing the outdoor courts for pickleball. So that was a huge day for us. It was a huge win. Matthew and I have been working really hard for years trying to get this off the ground and get it to happen, and getting the right people at the table, and coming up with an agreeable MOU for everyone. And it was definitely a great day for recreation, a big win for us. And
for the pickleballers, that's fantastic.
And for the pickleballers, it was an amazing day. So in that MOU, as you can understand, while we've been given the opportunity to host these, host different programs over there at the event center, in the MOU, it did state that if there was ever a need for the school district or the Boys and Girls Club to use that space, our needs would be secondary to theirs. And that happened on our first day on Sunday. There was some scheduling miscommunications there with the school district, and we were actually asked to push back our first day of usage at the event center by an hour, which was great because it gave us an opportunity to kind of adapt and show our flexibility and conduct some outreach to the community members last minute to let them know, hey, we're pushing this back by an hour. And it was for a great purpose too. We needed to allow the youth basketball program here in Half Moon Bay to be in there and utilize that space on Sunday morning. It also gave us a chance to see Commissioner / Coach Eisen in action. So that was it was fun to see. And I'm proud to say that we had 20 people show up for our first day of drop-in basketball, which is pretty tremendous if you think about it. For a first-time program, we're really hoping we could gauge the demand for it, and that's a big number to hit on a first day of a program. So it was a really it's an awesome opportunity, and we were all really satisfied with that. The pickleball people, they were excited about getting that opportunity. We only saw about 7 or 8 pickleballers show up on Sunday, so I think they're taking a little bit of time to warm up to it and come out, and they're not really used to having outdoor opportunities on Sundays, but we're hoping to see that number grow for the pickleball usage. But there's no doubt there's a demand for drop-in basketball, both young and old. So it's a 4-month pilot program that's written into the MOU. So really, we just all 3 groups want to see how that goes and make sure that we can all utilize the space and communicate the right way and make it a success. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we get to extend that program and that usage of the facility. So just wanted to let you know about that. It was a big deal for us, and we're really excited, and we have nothing but high hopes for it. So that's my big news.
That's very exciting news. Maybe you can maybe we can get into a drop-in or a whole indoor volleyball as well.
Hey, the sky is the limit, and that's on the docket. We wanted to start. The idea was we wanted to start off with something that we knew there were some people out there that were interested in participating in regards to basketball. So the idea is after these first few Sundays, we can kind of see what the demand for it is, and then we can start allowing other sports and other recreation opportunities in different areas of that event center. And again, it's on Sundays from 9 to 1, as well as the outdoor courts. So in a few weeks, we definitely hope to be able to set up some of those indoor volleyball nets, and having Commissioner Stamper call all of our volleyball people and bring them in. It's off to a great start, and we're super happy, and we got to thank Matthew for it, and Executive Director Jill Jacobson at the Boys and Girls Club, and Sean McFetridge, the school superintendent. So they were all really helpful and very cooperative and very supportive in it. So definitely great news. So now that we hit the high note, a couple other things. We had our second partnership Saturday with Santa event with the Half Moon Bay Library. We hosted that just the day before the facility usage, so on Saturday, this last Saturday. At the Half Moon Bay Library, we saw about 350 participants there that came to this event, where we offered a lot of free activities and an opportunity to take pictures with Santa. And it was just a really great feel-good event. And it wasn't as much as we had seen 2 years ago, but we didn't really know that there were 3 other opportunities for kids to meet Santa that weekend. So maybe we'll time it a little bit differently next year, so we can generate some more traffic in there. But the library, they were a great partner, and it always are. And we were really proud of that event, and look forward to growing that more in the years to come. And lastly, I'm sure you all know that during the pandemic, the community center has kind of been the facility that's hosted COVID testing. So it's really a centralized location here in Half Moon Bay, and really easily accessible here on the coast side. And we did host that indoors here at the community center for over a year. And, within the last 6 months, the county did indicate that, maybe there's not such a need for such a large room for that kind of program. So since then, they've moved outside and used kind of a mobile unit for testing. But in the last few months, they've started to indicate that there might be a little bit more of a need for folks to be tested and kind of offer on more days and a larger amount of time. So starting on the 17th, next Friday, we'll be offering 2 days a week indoor testing for 10 hours a day, Mondays and Fridays, in addition to the mobile unit outside, which is going to help in regards to weather and just being more accommodating to folks' schedules. So it's a big win for us. You know, the county was super appreciative of us being able to accommodate that request. And yeah, I think with this new Omicron, I don't know if I said it right, strain that's out there, people are wanting to get tested more. And so it's a really great thing that we're able to offer. So I think that's all I have for recreation updates tonight.
Okay, well, great news is always exciting to hear. No question about that. Thank you, Eddie. All right, how about the Parks Master Plan implementation update?
Last and least. Hey all, you still there? I know I'm gonna have you riveted to your chairs, but here we go. And
Okay,
Pat,
it's a big
I can't believe you play bocce if you cannot talk. There is no way that happens. So you're either breaking the rules or you're not playing bocce.
I'm talking and I'm drinking usually. I mean, come on.
And I don't know how anybody plays because you have 2 beers in each hand. How do you throw the ball? Anyway, you know, it's late and here we go. So thanks for inviting me along here. I enjoyed actually the conversation with Magnolia Seymour Park. And so that was good to hear. And I think that was, it certainly helps us understand a little bit more moving forward. And I'll talk a little bit about that sort of looking forward piece at the end. So on Carter, I'll start with Carter Park because I know that's a question that's out there, where we are, what's happening, and what's up. So I think the last time I was with you folks, I acknowledged that we were in the process of hiring the project manager, construction manager. That has been done, and they have been working. Part of their first task was to do a constructability assessment just to make sure that the plans we had, one, had everything necessary, and two, that there weren't possibly ways to cut costs and to design it slightly different or whatever with that deal. That work has just been completed, and actually the city engineer is meeting with them tomorrow to go over their recommendations and all of that. We are, as part of that, then finalizing the bid documents, and our anticipation is to have release of the bids within the next 2 weeks. So those will be out somewhere 5 to 6 weeks. Obviously, we know we need to get past the holiday period, New Year's and all, but that will allow folks to get going with that. And those that are kind of in working can work, but those that may not be working as diligently during the holidays time, we'll still have ample time to respond. And what our hope in that would be to award contract probably in mid to late February. And as we've always said, look at mobilization and commencement of construction the end of March, 1st of April. So we are on schedule and moving forward with that. Matthew, do you want to do any update on sort of the fundraising on that, just as we're talking Carter Park?
Yeah. I was going to cover that under priority setting, but I think it does fit.
It's up to you.
This area. So, you know, when you go back to the beginning of the year and we set some of our goals and priorities, the top one was funding Carter Park. And of course it was, and we talked about, you know, applying for grants, looking at, you know, if we needed to borrow money, how are we going to get this project moving forward? And then, of course, it was just a few months later that we heard from Senator Mark Berman's office at the state that they had managed to include funding for this in the state budget. And we've met with state representatives several times, and we've got a pretty straightforward process. And so the almost $5 million we're getting from the state will be available to us when we need it, which is really, really exciting. We do need to do fundraising. Chair Eisen is the sole member of our subcommittee, and it's been on my plate to kick off a meeting with the Friends and with her and with staff and get fundraising going, and just bandwidth hasn't been there. I am excited about having the PMCM on board, I think it'll be important to incorporate them into some of our meetings, and hopefully we'll get that kicked off very early next year, because there is still a gap that we need to fill to complete this project. But having that PMCM on board will help us to identify exactly what we need and how to move it forward. So it's on me that we haven't moved that piece forward, but the heavy lift is out of the way, and it's just some focused fundraising and community engagement I think we have moving forward. So that's all, very exciting, and thanks to John and his team for all their work to get this project moving forward. There's a lot of work to do, but there's a path, which when we started this discussion a year ago, there was no path. It was just hope. So it's pretty cool.
Thanks. I'm pleased to report that we, the council, did approve and authorize us to proceed with consultant teams for the Smithfield master planning work, and that has kicked off. The survey work was completed. Topo and boundary survey was completed. We received that material actually from the civil engineer, so that's a good start. We also have had some initial biotic assessment. We've talked about that, I think, the last time we spoke to this issue, and that will continue to inform processes. And the stakeholder meetings are being scheduled at this point with those primary users at Smithfield, as well as our neighbors, including Post and CLT. So those will be happening. I also just this evening received draft questions for the survey, community survey, and I'm trying to figure out the best timing with that. I know we're starting to hit people with a lot of surveys, and I'm a little concerned about it. So that's something that I'll be talking to Matthew and communications folks about how to move that and deal with that. We had a great outreach process with that at the Night of Lights. Saw some of you folks around there, but we got some really good response. And we did get supporters, major pickleball supporters going. I'll tell you, a lot of support there. But the beach volleyball folks did come in and support. And I'll tell you, playground was a huge item for folks out there, and particularly the kids. And we actually had dots, and those dots were designated color by kids, by our youth and everything. So we have an idea of even what, at least by the age group of under 18s, of what they were interested in terms of looking forward. So I think that'll be really helpful. The consultant is working on putting together sort of their report out on kind of what they saw out of that material. So we are looking to come back to the commission February, March to look at some preliminary work from them, get your response to that, and then finalize kind of the plan, and hopefully then at that point, finalize working with the potential donor to hopefully get a formal commitment, and we'll know where we stand at that point and go from there. Happy to report that with the capital funds, we were able to complete installation of a sound PA system at Mac Dutra. So there are now 1 wired mic and 4 wireless there. And you might have seen the speakers up if you've been out there around there. We also have Bluetooth and access capability, so we can put music on while we're waiting for events and activities. So, and no one should be drowned out during Poetry Jam by trucks passing by. So it's exciting. We're gonna use that tomorrow night, I guess, with the event that's going on and the group that's going to be up on the stage. So that'll be the first official use, other than a little bit that Matthew used with the Santa out there last Friday. So we're excited. That just happened in the last couple of weeks, and thank the council for their commitment of funds in the park improvement plans to allow us to do those types of things. Happy to report that, well, I'm unhappy to report, but happy anyway. We're having supply side issues with the equipment for Ocean View. So we're a bit delayed on getting equipment installed. We were hoping to be ahead of this point, but we're hoping by the first of the year or thereabouts that the equipment will arrive, and then we can schedule in probably late January, February, depending on weather and a lot of conditions and their workloads for doing the installs, the rubber installation, both at Oak Park and at Ocean View Park. But they are on the way. The council approved that and we are moving forward, but we are having a little bit of supply chain issues, like many of you might be having with your holiday gifts. Frenchman's Park, we are working on formulating a plan for phase 2 of Frenchman's, which is the swings and landscaping, fixing ADA access, ADA parking, and doing the additional work there and additional equipment, and particularly benches, picnic tables, sorry, and other things that we were proposing there. And we are hoping to allocate then the state Prop 68 money, as well as other funds that the city council has put forth for implementation on that. So that's going to be coming. We're going to be doing the survey work, hopefully in the next few weeks, and also working with a landscape architect and putting that together with hopes of having entitlements in late spring, and hopefully construction commencing sometime in the summertime is what our hope for that is. And then I would say, kind of looking forward, January is our usual kickoff point for capital program and capital improvement program work and capital budget assessment internally. We'll certainly be coming back to the Parks and Rec Commission, as well as the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, to talk about capital projects and things of that nature, and get your input on kind of where we go from here. On our kind of short list for the upcoming year is we'd like to do a mini Kehoe Park master plan. We definitely think that that can be done rather quickly and rather limited money cost to that point. It's a small park, but we really think that it really needs some attention, and it's time to start to move on that. Obviously, we have the issue of Smithfield implementation and where we go in that, including moving forward with the water line, potentially moving forward with the water line project to get better water there. Magnolia Seymour, obviously you talked about that, and looking at programming, potentially additional money to see, how far do we go forward with that. And then obviously, in addition, we would like to also, sort of with the Kehoe, is to look at Oak Park master plan as well, and take a look at that and try to get some things there. And we have some ideas, and we're going to be making some improvements, as we always do along the way, but even look at that as a master planning effort. So that's kind of where we are. The maintenance folks are, and Todd continue, I think, to do incredible work in incredible difficulty times. We've literally had 2 staff who have had wives with new babies, and so we have been short-staffed in all of this time the last several weeks. So that has been a little difficult, and we're working back into trying to get to fully staffed. We also had our part-time seasonal worker leave us in October, and Carlos did an amazing job for us. And we're going to be evaluating and talking to council and the city manager staff about what we do next year, whether we fund that again, and how we proceed to that. So that I think is something we're excited about, the opportunity to continue. And I think the program worked and really well this year for overall maintenance. And obviously it helped Poplar a lot, but Carlos went around and did trash pickup and opened restrooms and did all the things he needed to around when necessary throughout the city. And then we're looking at now that we're starting to move forward to a more open environment, working with Eddie and Matthew on on potentially partnering with their workers as well in terms of some of these efforts and issues. So, we're not perfect, and this will never be perfect, but I do think we're doing the best we can, is what I can say at this point.
All right, well, John, that's a lot. You know, very good. You got a lot going on. I have a few things I want to ask you about with that. Smith Field, it sounds like, do we have possibly an opportunity there for volleyball?
It is certainly something that we anticipate coming up. It certainly came out of some of the conversations, and I believe there's a possibility of potentially the two courts there near, I would say, what we're looking at would be near the dog park area there. There's some environmental issues that we've got to look at. We're hopeful that we can work through some of that and get more detail to that point, and that would then open up an area which certainly could accommodate, I believe.
That would be just great. And maybe, I mean, I have the thought, I mean, it's certainly something to throw around, is to move the dog park completely out of there.
Yep.
And put that somewhere else. Maybe, unfortunately, Matthew just said the Corp Yard is now going to be housing, which I didn't know about. But even with the housing, there still could be a dog park, a small dog park there for small dogs.
Well, I think it makes sense to take a look at that with any project that goes in, simply because we don't want those dogs going off into the sensitive habitat area. So I think we're going to have to look at that as part of that. I will say this, our bigger vision and our bigger plan and the master plan's vision was to seriously look at the landfill, the old landfill site, and look at some way to get larger dog park in there and some other issues. So I do think that remains a very viable option for us to at least consider, and because there's very low impact and very low need for improvements, frankly, and it's a lot drier area. So it's really fencing and a few improvements.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the large dog, I will say this, large dog area came up very high on the Smith Field as well. But I have my thoughts on how we might be able to do that. And I think the rec field,
there might be enough area in that landfill that we're talking about for both a large dog park and one for a small one. And, as I've said to Matthew, this is how many places have I been to dog parks that are actually on top of landfills? Quite a few now. So
there's one right in Foster City, San Mateo, right?
Exactly. I went to that one. It's huge. Yep. Yeah. It's great.
Bentley has been there as well as I.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. And then the only other question, because I haven't heard you say anything about it, is where are we? Is there no working on bringing the coastal path further east? And the whole Poplar, the whole, gateways, that whole thing. Where are we with that?
We are, and I usually try to couch that in the trails and pathways kind of piece of this deal, but I don't think we had that agendized. But it's fine. Poplar is a park. The council authorized funding and refunded the EIR work, and so that work is in process. We met earlier in the week with the consultant. They're working on this deal, so we are proceeding and pressing forward with the Poplar Gateways plan and the EIR, and that work and those things will be coming forward at a point when they're ready. I don't have to point out, this is a challenging location with a lot of constraints and a lot of biotic constraints, and we're just making sure that we're doing the best we can in addressing those, particularly biotic concerns and issues. But that project is moving forward, and you will be getting more information and detail about that And I'm happy
Okay,
the next
great.
time around to bring you up to speed on that one a little better. So if we want to put that on there, we can for next time.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So again, I just want to congratulate you again on the south entrance. Hopefully everyone has seen that now. Coming in from the south to Half Moon Bay, I feel like it just classed up the city in such a significant way. It looks so much better. It's such a nice thing to come into.
Thank you, and I'll pass your thanks along to my staff who are the ones responsible for that. And I have to thank the San Mateo County Transportation Authority. They gave a lot of funding for that, and we're really happy for that effort as well.
Yeah, that's just great. All right. Thank you, John. Let's go to the update from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation. Are you with us?
And before we do that real quick, I just really thank you. Big thank you to Eddie and Matthew for getting through with the school board and making that school MOU happen. I mean, that's
absolutely.
I think that's I hope we are back to celebrating our wins. To me, that is a humongous win that should be celebrated throughout the entire town. And just, I mean, talk about, even just the relationship building of that, because that shows that commitment as well, but also the ability to open up the town more for recreational use. So I hope you guys thank you for doing it. I hope you are celebrating it, and I would love to see you get recognition and council to get recognition for it. I think that's a big win for the town.
Definitely.
I agree.
Okay, where is anybody from?
Chair Eisen, we got a message from the Friends today that they probably would not have anybody joining us.
Okay.
There's a lot of traveling happening, so they'll regroup with us next year, and we'll work with them as we set our priorities and work with them on planning for next year.
Excellent. All right, we've done 6B, which is the Magnolia Park Improvement Project. So let's go on to commission goals for 2021. Are we just too late in the game here? Because
if I might recommend, what I would love to do is I can go through a PowerPoint in about 4 or 5 minutes just to refresh everybody, and I'll just hit a couple of those big wins.
Okay.
And then, in January, we'll need to do a process to identify, our chair and vice chair. And often that's the time of year when we look at goals and priorities. And so we don't have anything big planned yet for January, so we could really dig in on these in January.
Okay,
if that's okay. Okay, then I will share my screen. I will move through this very quickly.
I have a quick question before we continue. Is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
How long is our term? My term as a commissioner.
It's tied to the term of the council member that appointed you.
Oh, okay.
So whenever they come up for reelection, they'll reevaluate and make a decision on keeping. If your council member is reelected, then they have to evaluate if they're going to keep you or pick a new commissioner.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. As you recall, at the beginning of this year, we went through a process where we worked really hard to develop a list of priorities and goals for the year. And we tied them in some ways to the council's priorities. And then we checked in on them several times throughout the year. It's been a couple of months. We've had such busy meetings the last couple of months. So this is just an opportunity to run through those priorities. And as I mentioned, we'll dig into them a little bit more next year. So as a reminder, council priorities for this fiscal year, which runs through June of 2022. Affordable housing, lots of work has been done on that. We adopted our local coastal plan, which changed land uses for a lot of properties and made more opportunities for housing available, affordable housing. We've also adopted our ADU accessory dwelling unit and short-term rental ordinances, which help better define and manage housing here on the coast. And then we had that big housing workshop last month, which was really important at looking at potential sites. So that has had a lot of progress and a lot of great things happening there. Second council priority is public health, safety, and emergency preparedness. A couple of big wins there. We adopted actually last night the countywide local hazard mitigation plan, which identifies what we're most at risk for and some ways that we can mitigate those risks. And then that helps to inform our actual emergency planning so that we can respond to those risks as well. We worked with the county over the last year on that process. The county approved it and our council needed to adopt our portion of it, our chapter of it. That happened last night. We're at about 60% on our draft of a new emergency operations plan, which manages the city's response to emergencies. And then there's components around different types of disasters. And I think the most important component we're working on is evacuation planning for the coast side. So we're doing that both with the county, but we're also doing a more localized effort with the fire district and the sheriff and our staff. And there'll be more opportunities for the public to hear about that as we move that forward. We're also working on a crisis communications plan. In a city like ours, communications is probably our #1 role in an emergency. We're not the fire district, we're not law enforcement, we're not OES, but communicating with the community is really, really important. So our communications team is working on that plan right now, which ties into the other work we're doing. Community climate resilience and sustainability. We've continued to move the climate adaptation and action plan forward. Disposable foodware ordinance was adopted this year. The electrification ordinance, the first reading was adopted last night. Lots of work with John's team moving that all forward and just seeking a more sustainable community for us. Economic recovery, I mentioned the Coastside Recovery Initiative. The recommendations have been developed and that's moving forward. Some big wins from that include the street dining that we see now in our downtown, and we're working on establishing that more long-term. Make It Main Street, the First Thursdays event, which was a really big hit and we want to bring back next year is another thing that came out of that. And you'll see more things like that over the next couple of years that result from the work that happened on that initiative. And then the last time was redistricting, something we have to do under state law and has to be done after the census. So we're in the middle of that. And there's a big meeting on the 16th if you're interested in it, and happy to provide information on that if you have questions offline. So those are the council priorities for this fiscal year. Now let's get into your commission priorities. Carter Park funding and development. At the time we created this priority, we didn't know how we were going to do it. We had some ideas about pursuing funding, and then this great opportunity with the state came along, and that puts us in a really great position. And you've received your report from John. That is moving forward, and looking forward to working with Chair Eisen and the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec and the Chamber on fundraising and making sure we can complete the entire project all at once. The MOU for facilities sharing, a huge success, really great work by Eddie. I think we've worked really hard with the school district to develop better relationships, but Eddie has made such headway with the Boys and Girls Club. And that is such a great relationship now. They are constantly working on projects, both recreation and Boys and Girls Club. And I think that is really the key that led to this happening. Is that relationship that Eddie and his team have established with the Boys and Girls Club. I do think it's a first step. This is kind of a pilot to prove that the community can use school facilities and we can make it work. There are lots of things we have to work out just because of the priority of school facilities being used for the youth in the schools first, and how we can be nimble and work around that so that our goal is to fill all available hours outside of the schools to provide recreation to the community. And I think the big one that Eddie and I have been talking about that we want to make sure happens as we move into 2022 is pool access for next summer. We want to see community swim and we want to see swimming lessons next summer. And all indications are we're going to be able to move that forward. So very excited about that. Earth Day activities. There was a desire to expand and really build on Earth Day. Obviously, this past year, we couldn't really jump on that with where things were at with COVID. But I think the hope is to do more this year. And I know that Public Works has some ideas in the works. and the chamber as well, and some of our businesses. And so the Earth Day is Friday, April 22nd. And I know Public Works tries to look at more as Earth Week or Earth Month. And I think there's some great opportunities there. And early next year, and maybe at our February meeting, it'd be great to invite Crystalline to come and talk about some of the ideas that they've had. That's one of the things we need is some leadership around this. And I think the chamber is a really great place to start. And she's with us tonight. She may choose to make some public comment after I finish my report here. The Johnston House MOU and planning, that's one that is still just completely on hold. We have had some recent interactions with leadership there that we're hoping will open the door to those conversations. We are really pressing the issue because we think it's time for those discussions to happen. I know Commissioner Black is now working with that group, and we're hoping that she can have an influence on moving that forward. I think the outcomes we want to see is more community access to that facility and in ways we can partner to activate that facility more. The public art policy, it's done, which is really fantastic. And I think we all know the next stage in this will be determining when and how to do a public arts master plan, which will identify funding sources, locations, and ideas for public art here in the community that can be implemented in the future. And then Magnolia Park, which also you see is moving forward very quickly. The next group of concepts that came out of our discussions was things that we could provide additional info and learning about, hold special meetings and collaborations on over this year. The coastside-wide coastal trail planning group was something that was high on your list. And the first step in our work plan for that was to hold the joint meeting with BPAC, which was held back in September, and I thought was a really productive meeting. BPAC is going to be the lead agency within the city on any of these efforts. And in talking with John Dowdy from Public Works, they plan to agendize a discussion and movement on convening a regional coastside-wide planning group early next year. And so we'll keep you posted on that so that you can join that meeting, a public meeting, and participate in that discussion. Collaborating with the Granada Community Services District, they attended several meetings this year and provided reports, which is great. I talk with them on a pretty regular basis. We're actually providing a lot of support to them as they're figuring things out. We have some expertise here that they really appreciate, and I think it helps build our collaboration. And I know that Eddie works with them on planning for activities and any collaborations that we can do. We hope in the future that some of our activities can actually be offered on their properties in the Mid-Coast, which will open up additional opportunities for people that live in those areas and vice versa. So something that's ongoing. There's not a lot going on with that, and certainly we're open to ideas about doing more with that. The Mid-Penn Housing and Moonridge Fields Use collaboration that was brought up, but was put on hold because Mid-Penn was not in a position to talk about it. They have some bigger issues that they're dealing with at Moonridge. I checked in with them in the last couple of weeks, and their situation has not changed, but they're aware that we are still very interested in it. There are soccer fields out there that we could potentially activate for the community and provide some additional facilities that we just can't offer right now. And then the first night event, which is something that's been talked about for a while, and it's a New Year's Eve event that could be planned in the downtown area. I think when we first put this on here, the hope was we could plan something for this coming New Year's Eve. Again, COVID has really made that impossible. But at a recent Downtown Association meeting, I brought up the concept again. There was widespread support for this concept and a desire to collaborate. And so I would recommend that we move this up to a priority for next year. And it's certainly not something I think the city on its own can take on, but I think the commission can take a role in our rec staff will have a role working with a larger community group to kick something off. So really exciting and a lot of energy and excitement around that. So definitely something I think we should push up the priority list for next year. And then the final category that you provided was future priorities and opportunities. These are things we were interested in and we would take on as opportunities kind of presented themselves, which has been really fruitful, I think, in the last year. The community recreation survey and engagement is not something we really planned to take on this year, and it didn't really find a natural fit in this year's work. And so it's something I think we'll continue to discuss. The beach and sand volleyball courts, we heard a lot about tonight. We, of course, were able to, with the support of our subcommittee and great work by Jill from Community Development and John from Public Works, actually kick off the pilot on Poplar Beach, on the north end of Poplar Beach this year. It ended in a crash and burn, but that's Mother Nature for you. But I think we can overall say it was a success. And our goal is early next year to work on a CDP that would allow us to do a much longer seasonal use on a regular basis, and possibly look at not just the north end location that we used this year, but maybe one court closer to the vertical access where people that are just using Poplar Beach may find it an opportunity to use it. Certainly looking for alternative sites to build a permanent year-round facility. I know that Hillary Stamper and I have had conversations with some of our clubs and with the school district, and there may be an opportunity we can pursue up at the high school. Smith Field, as we heard tonight, may be also an opportunity. And, you know, in the past, the bluffs near Poplar Beach have been discussed, and it's received a lot of resistance from the environmental community. And so it's something that we're open to, but I don't see the city pushing a big effort towards those locations due to the environmental concerns out there and the history out there. Bicycle pump track, again, we just added it to our list, and you know, as we started working on Magnolia, realized that it was in existence and there was an opportunity there. And so I think this is something we're excited to hopefully move forward. New and inclusive events, I'll just name a few that are already out there. The Make It Main Street, we plan to bring back again next year, kicking off hopefully in April and continuing through November. And just a really great community event that I think can be expanded. In May, the Downtown Association is planning to host a wine and jazz festival downtown, which is really exciting. We had plans to work with All Us on, we were working with All Us on Hispanic Heritage Month activities, including a farm worker parade and a street fair on Parisma Street in front of the All Us facility. They ultimately made the decision to cancel it due to the cancellation of the Pumpkin Festival in Summer's End, but certainly something we'll be bringing back next year. And then, you know, the first night event and the Earth Day activities, I think, fall into this category. So lots of cool new things happening in our community. And then, as I shared earlier, 880 Stone Pine, the recreation use has to be put on hold as our community development and public works staff explore development for housing feasibility first off, and then if it's feasible, because there are a lot of constraints out on that property, as we know. But then if it is feasible, is it something that's practical? So we will keep you posted on that. And if the opportunity comes back, we'll certainly want to pursue exploring those recreation uses out there. So that was your work plan for the year. As you can see, there's been a ton of success, and I'm really proud of the work that's been done in collaboration with the commission and our rec team and all of our city departments and community partners. There's certainly opportunities to move further on some of these, and certainly when we talk next year, there's room to talk about some new things and some things that maybe you've been thinking about. So we'll plan to kick that off in January or February of next year. I know that was a lot and it was very quick, but are there any questions on anything I shared that is just really pressing to you?
No.
No.
Put that all together.
But that was great. And it gives us a great perspective on the work that, the energy and work that we've all put into this year, the commissioners as well as the staff. Working together and for some of these things to come to fruition. So thank you, everybody that's been involved. And thank you, Matthew, that was great. It really helps us get a sense of, you know, you lose sight as the time goes by, and it's great to get, wrap it up in a sense, so that we get to understand what has gone on this year, and it's been a lot.
Yeah. I would be remiss, when we thought this meeting wouldn't go this long, we had asked Crystalline Geet from the chamber to join us and just share her thoughts on a couple of those events. I don't know if you want to give her just a few minutes, or
Sure.
I feel bad that it's 9 o'clock and we're late, but also that she's been waiting this whole time.
No, sure, absolutely, yeah.
Crystalline, if you want to talk, would you mind raising your hand right now? Okay, she does want to talk, so we'll give her just a few minutes.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. New headset. So I just wanted to let Matthew and I and Eddie as well have been really in constant communication these last couple of months as events start coming back. And Matthew kind of mentioned it earlier. So interestingly enough, something that our chamber has been very interested in since I got here is a sustainability and kind of eco festival. And in talking with Matthew, it really seems to make the most sense to combine our efforts and really make Earth Day festivities really awesome. And as he mentioned, we were kind of like looking at the Nights of Lights as kind of a proof of concept of, will the community come out? You know, how does that big tent work? And all of these great things. And we have a couple of ideas already rolling around that I think are all very feasible. I had a nonprofit roundtable today, and some eco focused nonprofits were there, and I kind of just flew it past them, and they're already excited. So I think we might be able to pull off our best Earth Day to date, and really, as a part of the Coastside Recovery Initiative, there's a real effort to try to brand and make Half Moon Bay the town that people look to, you know, as eco and sustainability, and say like they've got it down, like they are the pinnacle of what we need to be doing. And so this will help us bring that education out. And in a super fun way. So I'm really excited about that. And then also, Matthew mentioned the New Year's Eve. The Chamber and the Downtown Association had originally planned on doing it, something like that, for 2020, which obviously fell apart. But then again, with the success of Nights of Lights and the parade, and even just the tree lighting, which was so great. And thank you again for that PA system. It worked so beautifully. The New Year's Eve event, we've also got a lot of ideas about a street dance, and again, bringing back the tent and really making it a fun engagement. And I actually kind of took a little in-person poll during the end of Nights of Lights, just kind of gauging people's interest if they thought they would come out for New Year's Eve. And there was a resounding like, yes, if you build it, we will come. So I'm super excited about that. So I look forward to the Chamber and the city being able to partner on these really, really great events, and then figuring out how we can make more events. Because if we could get this down to a science, we'll be golden.
Great. I love it, Crystalline. It's just great. Yeah, that's what's needed here. We've been throwing this idea around for ages, first night. Because I've attended a number of them, and so has Adam and some other people, and in other places. And it's a great, it has great, it's a great event. It really brings the community together. And so I'm so glad that you're on board to be involved and with the city and make this happen, because that's going to be very exciting. So tremendous. All sounds, I'm excited. Moving ahead. That's the big deal. You gotta get excited. And the Earth Day. That's the other thing, is that I'm thrilled to hear this. I mean, there is a huge turnout, even for what it is that we do. The compost, the paper shredding. I mean, I go every year, and it's a huge turnout. It's getting more and more so. And so we already have the people. We already have, the foundation. Now it's like, let's build on that and make it even a bigger event. So I'm just thrilled to hear this, very excited. Any other comments before we wrap it up here? Okay, so thank you again. Great night. Thank you for your patience and your cooperation. It was a big night. We got a lot done here. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
How do I do that?